Blue Bloods has been around for 13 years and now has a huge fan base that fills the pockets of its cast. So how much do the stars really earn? Starting with Sammy Gale. The actor's been around a while, and her acting portfolio has projects like Detachment, Vampire Academy, Stolen, you name it. Of course, this was all before she made it big through CBS's Blue Bloods, where she appears as Nikki Reagan Boyle. And it's clear that the 12 seasons of the show have been super kind to her, since she's gathered quite a lot of riches for herself. That's right, her net worth is currently standing at $2.5 million, with sources stating that she makes $10,000 per episode from the show. Talk about your dream job. What's more is that things are only expected to get better as Gale continues to make her way to mainstream Hollywood. This might just be the reason why she wasn't too regular in recent seasons of the show. And who knows, there might just be a raise in her future since the actor is getting more and more in demand. You go, girl. Speaking of girl power, Abigail Hawke is also totally crushing it in the show. Yep, her role as Detective Abigail Baker in the show has proved to be extremely lucky for her. Honestly, any job that bumps up your net worth to around $0.8 million is pretty cool. And if things continue like this, we might just see her crossing the 1 million mark. And while it might be a bit hard to know her exact salary, but here's some math for you. So the core cast of the show receives around $200,000 to $50,000 for an episode. Now, her income might not be that high, but it's safe to assume that it's gonna fall in the same ballpark. With that being said, let's see how much the core cast really earns. We'll be talking about everyone: Tom Selleck, Donnie Wahlberg, and Bridget Moynihan. But right now, let's dive into Len Carrio's bank account. Oh, if only we were so lucky. Sadly, we'll just be discussing his salary. And turns out that playing the role of a former NYPD police commissioner pays more than the actual job. Yikes. Now, that's a completely different debate, and we can't get into it right now, so let's just get back to Carrio. Well, he earns over $60,000 per episode, which makes his overall earnings for an entire season pretty high. And yep, I understand that his per episode pay might not be what you were expecting, but you've got to realize that he doesn't have that much screen time. And hey, this might make you feel a bit better. His net worth is over $6 million, so yeah, he's done pretty well for himself. There's another actor coming in strong right behind him, who's also affectionately known as Little Boy Blue. I'm sure you've guessed it by now. Yep, let's see how much Will Estes earns. Now, the Golden Boy is actually pretty secretive about his salary and net worth, but I think I've got a pretty good enough estimate for you. So considering the fact that he's among the core cast and plays Frank Reagan's youngest son, his salary is definitely going to be leaning towards the higher end of the average. And yup, that's exactly the case. His salary per episode lies somewhere over $60,000, which is the base salary for the core cast. That sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? Well, if things carry on like this, and the show manages to stay relevant and fresh in its upcoming seasons, then Estes definitely has a raise in his future. That sounds pretty good, and it's gonna push his net worth to be even greater than the 5 million mark he's sitting at right now. But did you know that Estes' salary is surpassed by Donnie Wahlberg, who plays Danny Reagan, the Golden Boy's older brother? Now, I don't want to cause any rift between the two brothers, but it sorta makes sense, considering the fact that Wahlberg is a much more experienced actor with cool films like The Sixth Sense, Saw 2, and Dreamcatcher on his portfolio. He's been in the industry for 4 decades, which explains his $20 million net worth. But what about his salary from Blue Bloods? So the 53-year-old started with a package of $60,000 per episode, where he was making around $1.3 million a season. But of course, he's worked super hard on the show, and it makes sense that his salary has been increased. And now he's earning well over $3 million from a season with his new $150,000 per episode package. That sounds like a pretty good sum, doesn't it? And it might be very high, but his net worth is still not as good as Bridget Moynihan's. Now, some of you might know her as Natasha from and the City, but her role as Erin Regan on Blue Bloods really contributed to her net worth, and it continues to do so. She's appeared in over 220 episodes of the show and has quite a hefty sum to show for it. Get this, she actually started working on the show for a salary of $60,000 per episode, but pretty soon the creators realized her worth, as she now earns over $100,000 for an episode. Can you guess how much she makes in a season now? Don't worry, I did the math for you, and it's somewhere around a whopping $3 million. So it kinda makes sense that she's so high on the list, right? Of course, this means that her total net worth is going to be through the roof as well. And you're absolutely right. She's currently worth $25 million. Yikes. Bridget is rich, and rich. But it's nothing compared to the actor who plays her father, Tom Selleck.
Just this once. Because the boots on the ground got a big kick out of it.
Yup, I saved the best one for the last. Selleck is easily the most recognizable man in the show, so you can expect his salary to be just as classy as the actor himself. And that's absolutely right. He gets paid $200,000 for his role as the NYPD Commissioner Frank Regan. Can I just say that this man truly deserves this amount? I mean, what show hasn't he been in? Friends, Magnum PI, and now Blue Bloods? Can you even imagine the amount of experience he brings to the table? So it makes sense that this gig sits on the top of his money-making projects and has made some pretty hefty contributions to his $45 million net worth. But here's a big shocker for you. When he was stealing our hearts through his role as Magnum on Magnum PI, Selleck was actually earning $500,000 per episode.
So, just this once.
Isn't that crazy? You'll be surprised to know that with Blue Bloods, he actually started at the lower end of the average, with $50,000 as his salary for one episode. But 12 seasons and 265 episodes later, he's come a very long way. And to be very honest, no one really expects him to be replaced on the show. Plus, Selleck isn't one to walk away from such a handsome salary. So guess you could check back after a few years and see his net worth get even higher. Seems like the show's been a good luck charm for the cast members, especially their bank accounts. Well, that's all for Blue Bloods. See you in the next video.